Welcome to the second session of Nourishing the Soul Through Nature. And this session is about what is it like to experience yourself as nature living through you. And Natasha is going to run the first session, the first hour of this session. And I'm really looking forward to finding out, Natasha is going to teach us about the 5 elements, or the 6 elements probably. And I'm handing over to you now, Natasha.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Yeah, first of all, I just want to show you that I have sort of almost pinned to me a leaf. Yeah, and it's a leaf of an oak, because I wanted to segue today's exploration with oak trees. I'm just curious, how many of you live near oak trees? Maybe you could put your hands up so I can see. Okay. And the rest of you, what's your most common tree near to you? Do you? Not sure. Okay. I was just curious because I know certainly in Europe and I'm going to say Germany and Greece and the UK, oak would have been quite a native species, but we're from all over here, so I'm not.
There is oak close to me, but actually I really don't know the names of the different trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Okay. So I wanted to begin by sharing a little about oak trees. So these trees, these oak trees that are just outside where I am right now, they grow from acorns. Some of you have probably seen an acorn. I haven't got one because it's the wrong time of year for them, but they're little kind of cups, little green kind of held in a little cup seed, and they grow into these magnificent, huge beings. So I wanted to share with you first a few facts about oaks, because yeah, it's always good to get to know a tree a little. So my first fact, some of these I only found out in preparation for this class, is that oak forests provide a rich habitat and support more life forms than any other native tree in the world, which I was pretty stunned by. Also, they're very good as a seaworthy timber. And so they were used to build many famous ships in the shipbuilding era, including a ship that the UK built called the HMS Victory, which consumed no less than 6,000 oak trees in the building of one ship. Yeah. So what's interesting to me about that fact is that there was a time where Greece, where I used to live, was totally covered with thick forests. And there was a time certainly where the UK was a rainforest, but there was also a time where there were lots of ships being built with timber, and that sort of marked the end of that era, really. So the other fact I want to share is that oaks were once used as a coffee substitute and liquor, and also many of my ancestors in the UK would have collected acorns to process into flour and make bread. I did try to do this about 8 years ago, and it's a really labor-intensive process, but it is possible because they have a lot of tannin in. So you have to wash through the tannin in order to be able to process it into flour. So the other fact that I wanted to share is that oaks are more likely to be struck by lightning than any other tree. And for that reason, the Druids in the UK, I don't know if you've heard of Druids, but they're a bit like pagans. They basically worshipped oak trees because they were wanting to court the flash of inspiration. And what they perceived as the lightning striking these trees was that these trees allowed them to court this flash of inspiration more fully. Yeah, so mainly I wanted to kind of feel also into the physical sense of the oak tree. And the physical sense is that they gather material from the world. So literally, they gather nutrients from the soil. They gather energy from the sun. They gather carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they gather water. And somehow through combining these elements of the world, cell by cell, they build themselves up into this magnificent form, the tree. So the thing that I wanted to share in relationship to that is that everything that makes us, you and me as humans, has in some way also been gathered up from the environment, the world. So initially from our mothers, from the milk and the air, and then the food and water and so on. So everything that makes us is of the world, and everything that makes the oak is from the world. The oak tree or us is no more or less a part of the world than anything else. And you could say that an oak tree is the world manifesting, or life manifesting as an oak tree. And you could say that we are life or the world manifesting as us. Yeah. So there's this practice that I wanted to share with you today. I'm just going to put you onto gallery view because I'd much rather see you than me. There's this practice I wanted to share with you today. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but traditionally it's called the 6 element practice, and it comes from Buddhism. And it's an insight practice as opposed to a samatha practice. So I just wondered if anyone's heard of this practice here. No, okay. So traditionally, samatha practices, something like the mindfulness of breathing that you might have heard of, is about cultivating concentration and calm. And traditionally, vipassana or insight practices are about connecting with a direct experience of reality. So this 6 element practice is kind of opens the possibility, as it were, of a direct experience of reality. And I would say that that direct experience of reality is interdependence, a sense of ourselves as participating in the world. Yeah. Okay, so what shall I say about it? Yeah, so traditionally the elements, they're mapped onto the body. So if you put your hand down by your groin, if you know, just in a like neutral kind of a way, that would be the root, yeah? And the root is linked to earth element. Yeah, so earth element traditionally, I'll tell you when we go into the practice, but this is me just sort of introducing the practice. Traditionally, the earth root has certain qualities, the earth element. And I just wondered if you just wanted to unmute yourself and share a quality that you associate with earth, one quality with the earth element.
Grateful.
Grateful, gratitude for the earth. Yes, that's true. And if it was a particular quality, like if you were describing someone as being earthy,
grounding.
Oh, that person's quite grounded. Who said that?
I did.
Yeah,
Livy.
thank you.
Livy. Thank you.
Thank you, Livy.
That's the most
Yeah.
important.
So
That's where it starts.
There's something about being grounded. Anybody else?
Solid, pushing, being able to push against something.
Exactly. There's often a sense of resistance that can be experienced in the earth element, usually in that direction, a sense of resistance, and perhaps a sense of steadiness, maybe a sense of stability and steadiness. Yeah. So when we move,
I was just going to say being met.
Being met. Yes, you mean in the contact, in the physical contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you, Caroline. So if we move up the body, where are we going to? Yeah, I'm going to touch sort of vaguely my digestive system, which I'm just going to put my hands on my torso and my guts. So this is linked to the water element. Yeah, so when we're mapping this system on the body, we have the water in the torso there. And I'm just wondering if we might share some qualities of water that we associate with water.
Cleansing. Cleansing.
Cleansing.
Soft.
Soft.
It runs through your fingers, but it can bring.
It runs through your fingers.
Yeah. But it's
Going with the flow, it sort of flows, doesn't it? Ebbs and flows.
Yeah, it's definitely flows. It's quite flexible as an element.
Depth, it always finds the lowest point.
Yes, that's true. It always is moving towards depth, and it's very informed by gravity. Well, as are we actually, but yeah. Wonderful. Okay. And then as we move up the body, we come to the heart center. So I'm just going to place my hands on my heart center. And this is associated with the fire element. So I'm just wondering if you have any qualities that, to be honest, I'm sitting next to a wood burner. And if I look rosy cheeked, it's because it's suddenly decided to take off. So I'm very aware of the fire element at the moment. But I'm just wondering what qualities you might associate with fire.
Warmth.
Warmth.
Rebirth.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Kim.
Rebirth.
Rebirth, yes. It's often very associated with alchemy, isn't it, and transformation. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Yes. Heat.
Heat. Yeah, there's a lot of heat, a lot of vitality, I would say, in fire as well. There's quite a lot of, you can really sense the energy, the power in it.
Sort of freedom, sort of flight, spirit.
Yes, something of spirit. Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yes, it can certainly be dangerous. Yes. Yeah. But also it can be dangerous if we don't have it. We're actually really dependent on fire for life. Really. Certainly in certain hemisphere of the world. Yeah.
Cooking.
Cooking. Great. Great. Okay, so then I'm just going to move up to the throat. Here we are. And in the throat center here, we have the element air. Yeah, so the element air. And I'm just wondering what you associate with the element air.
Voice.
Voice.
Wind.
Wind. I saw that movement, Achim. It was an air element movement, wasn't it?
Expansion. Space.
Expansion. Yeah, it tends towards spaciousness, I think. Yeah. I would say breath. I definitely associate breath with air. Yeah. And as opposed to earth, it's quite upwards moving. I mean, it's not, earth's definitely, I think of earth as being in this direction, and air I definitely think of being in this direction. Okay, so those are the four that we're going to focus on, but just for the sake of running through the elements in this practice in terms of an introduction, the brow here is the place of space. Yeah, so the fifth element would be space, and it's located here in the brow. As we move up the elements in the body, they become much more ephemeral, and a little bit less tangible in a certain kind of way, in a material kind of a way. So I don't know about you, but whenever I'm trying to connect with a sense of spaciousness, it's always this part of my body in which I connect with it. I have this wonderful kind of thing that I do with people when they come on nature retreats, and I get people to stick their hands out in front. Why don't you do it? Stick your hands out in front of you like this. And then I ask them to open up their arms and see just how wide their arms can go with their eyes looking forwards, but so that they can still see their hands. So you kind of wiggle your fingers at the side and see if you can still see them. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're softening the eyes so that we have peripheral vision, which is a lot how a cow perceives the world. Yeah. So that peripheral vision really allows us to begin to sense sort of spaciousness, because we're opening our awareness to the breadth of things. So this is where space is. And then finally, I'll just sit down a bit, here on the crown, somewhere here on the crown, is consciousness. The sixth element is consciousness. Yeah. Great. Okay, so in the practice, what we do is we reflect on where each element exists in our body. We reflect on where each element exists outside of the human body. And we reflect that it is the same element, that there is no difference between that element out there and that element manifesting in here. So that's really, it's quite simple. But the way to really feel into the practice is to sense it through the feeling body. Yes, so I'll guide you through it, and I'll encourage you to see as best as you can if you can feel into the practice through your sensing body as opposed to thinking about it too much. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or reflections about this so far? No? Okay, then let's go. I'm going to have to take off my oak and my jumper because of the heat. Ah, there we go, that's better. All right, so what I would really encourage you to do is to get comfortable. And I'm not sure about your physical capabilities, but it can be really helpful, if it's all right to do that, to have your spine supported outside of your pelvis. And so rather than say leaning on a chair like this, I'd encourage you to support yourself with your spine. Yeah. One way that really helps me with that is to tilt my pelvis a bit like, I sometimes call it a duck bum, a bit like ducks do. They stick their bums out and then the pelvis tilts, and then the spine can naturally rise out of the pelvis without too much muscular effort. And I usually have, if I'm sitting in a chair, both of my feet on the ground. Yeah, so both of my soles of feet are on the ground, nice and firmly in contact with the earth. And then the other thing I like to do, just to make sure that my chest is not collapsed, is I move each of my shoulders up to a kind of 12 o'clock position and then drop the shoulder down. In some ways, then I make sure that I'm somewhere between being a teenager, collapsing her chest, and being, I don't know, whatever that would be, someone that's pushing her chest out. So I try and find somewhere in the middle for my heart center to feel itself in a natural position. And then I might just move my head gently backwards and forwards a little, just sensing through that movement where the head feels itself poised in a balanced kind of a way. Yeah, so you're just gently thinking, oh, where feels like the place where my neck can sit, my head can sit on my neck. And then I make sure that my hands are supported. So usually I put my hands on my lap, either facing downwards or upwards, so that they're nice and supported in such a way that they don't encourage my shoulders to collapse forwards. So I keep them nice and close to my lower belly. And then the other thing I do is that sometimes I think we can, when we're preparing for meditation, our chin can somehow rise up. So I just make sure that my chin is sort of tucked in such a way that I have enough length on the back of my neck, so that my neck can be nice and soft on the back. And then if you feel for it, you might want to close your eyes. If you want to keep them open, I'd encourage you to soften your gaze so that you're not focusing your eyes on anything in particular. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'll just lead us through this. Probably it will take around 20 minutes or so. I would like to say that if you feel uncomfortable at any point and you want to move your body, I'm not of the school of meditation teachers that thinks that you have to hold your body in quite a tight, rigid way. So moving yourself in ways that support you to stay awake and relaxed, I'm up for that. Something that enables you to stay awake and relaxed. So we can just begin to orientate ourselves. So we probably have a sense that somewhere below us is the earth. We might be in an apartment block. We might be in a house. We can just sense that somewhere beneath the foundations of the building is the element earth.
Yes.
Yes, just like that. Yeah. And then we might sense our surroundings. So we find ourselves probably in a room. And we might sense the space behind our body. Maybe sensing the space either side of our body. Maybe sensing the space above the body. And in front. So really we're locating ourselves in the world. Each of us is somewhere in the world and we just locate ourselves in the world. So I'd encourage you to soften your face if you can. Sometimes I start meditating by putting my hand on my face in a supportive, tender way. And I might say to myself, hello, my darling face. Hi. There can be a lot of tension in the face. So I just sometimes make a little contact with the cheeks and the jaw. A little sweet bit of contact there and say hello. Yeah, great. So letting the face relax or inviting the face to relax. And then I might begin to see, oh, what's it like to release my posture from the root, from the ground, releasing from the root and the ground up towards my crown. So I'm not really thinking my way into this. I'm just curious, what's it like to release or relax from the ground upwards through my body? And also, what's it like to allow, to let go downwards from the crown to the root? And then we might just gently begin to sense where the breath is touching the body right now. This breath. So somehow we're poised. As human beings, we tend to be poised between earth and sky, and usually located somewhere. Generally speaking, if we're alive, we're breathing. So they're really good starters in a meditation. Breath, orientation, earth, and sky. And a little bit of sense of being with ourselves and for ourselves. So we're just going to start with the earth element, which is down in the root there. And we just have a sense of breathing in, imagining earth. Breathing out, imagining earth. So you might even get a sense of imagining roots coming out through the soles of your feet like tendrils. And feeling their way into the earth element. And then we just begin to get a sense of how earth manifests in our own bodies. So we might begin by getting a sense of weight in the body. Sometimes I imagine that ships, when they're on the ocean, really they need to give their weight to the ocean. And in the same way, we might be able to give our weight to the earth. Sometimes play with the idea of what's it like to give my weight to the earth and really sense the earth holding me. So we can also notice that we have teeth, nails, bones, skin, muscle. This is all matter that has been made out of earth. Yeah, through food, we very much get a sense of the earth moving through our body like a slow river. So we can just soften the face. There's no need to try and do anything. We're just sensing something of the earthiness of us. And then we might begin to, through our bodies, through the floor, through the soles of our feet, sense the earth in the world outside of us. maybe through the cityscape or through the countryside. Right where I'm sitting, it's quite hilly, so I can get a sense of the earth's sort of rolling through the hills outside of where I'm sitting. It might be flat where you are, just open to the shape of the earth. It's more of a sensing than a thinking, as best as possible. So breathing in and breathing out. As we breathe out, we meet the earth element as it manifests in the external world. As we breathe in, we can sense the earth outside. Sometimes referred to as Mother Earth, often talked about as Mother Earth. And then we can just begin to reflect that the earth outside and the earth inside is literally the same element. So the carrots, the rice, anything that you put in your mouth is of earth. We can just open to a sense that we are the same as this, that there's no distinct boundary between earth outside and earth inside. And we're constantly taking in this earth element to maintain our life. If we stopped taking in the earth element, we wouldn't last very long, perhaps a few weeks. So nowhere can we find a substantial, enduring self in this element. We don't own it, as it were. If anything, we might sense that it owns us more. We are the earth manifesting as us. And we can just release from that. Just get a sense of the seat supporting your bum, ground supporting your feet. Maybe sensing the space all around and the sky above, even through the ceiling. Maybe just checking in with the face again, softening the face. And then we just begin to move to the water element. So in the body, it's quite tangible to sense the water element. Usually we can sense some moisture in the mouth there. Sometimes we can sense some moisture in the nose and even in the eyes. If, like me, you're in a very hot place, you might even be able to sense the water dripping down your skin. So through tears, saliva, sweat, we really get a sense of the liquid moving through the body. And of course, we pee quite a lot of the time. So we can sense the liquid goes in, the liquid comes out many times in the day. We might sometimes sense moisture in our armpits and our hands and our groin. And imaginatively, we can sense the blood coursing through the body. So we really sense that water lives and moves through us each day. And it's not really even inside of us, it is us. That water is us. Even in the way that when we breathe, our body moves and has flexibility. That's an expression of the fluidity of water in the muscle. And we can just begin to imagine water outside. So we probably have taps in our house where when we switch the tap, the water comes on to drink, to wash up with, to clean ourselves with. So we have water in our homes. Much of us, many of us have water in our homes. And then of course we have water in the ocean, in the rain, in rivers and lakes, in the clouds and snow, in the fog, in the morning dew, and even in the moisture in the soil. So we just begin to sense all of that water out there, plenty of water in the world. And we don't try too hard. So water is all around, and water is also within you. Water is not me, water is not mine. The water in me and the water outside are not separate. Just rest with all of that. And we can really sense quite easily the sense of water flowing through the human body. It's almost literally a river moving through us daily. And we can just settle back in the chair, settling down into our contact with the ground, resting a little, letting go of having to do anything. We need to move to become more comfortable, letting ourselves do that. This isn't an exercise in rigidity. And then we gently ease into the fire element up around the heart, associated with the heart. We can have a sense of the energy in us, our metabolism, our lifewood energy. And we might be able to sense warmth in our bodies. Perhaps we can sense warmth in one part of our body more fully, Maybe even with the breath, we might notice that the out breath may feel warmer than the in breath. So the heart, the hearth, this element fire in the body. So we just settle, as it were, with a sense of heat, life, energy inside. Softening the face, softening the hands. You might begin to imaginatively sense fire out there. So perhaps in the form of a candle, a sense of a fireplace, a radiator, sense of the sun, even in the earth, even under the crust of the earth, we have the molten core of our planet, full of fire. You might even be able to sense our pulse, our heart beating. We can sense how important this element is for us, particularly in the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. We go to a lot of effort to maintain this element in the body through eating calories, through wearing clothes, through heating our homes. If this element isn't maintained, we would die very quickly. So we can reflect that this element is essential to our life. If it were to leave us, our life would end. Our life depends on these elements. These elements are us. They are us manifesting as the world, manifesting as life. And we can just settle a little, letting all that rest through the torso, down into the pelvis, resting in the thighs and the feet, the heart, the jaw. And we come to the last element, air. Quite literally, we sense the air each time breath comes to us. So breath is our constant companion in life. It comes to us the moment of our birth and stays with us until our very last moment. It's our constant companion. a wave rushes in and then moves outwards. So it's almost on loan, as it were. Hardly needs to be said how vital this element is to our life. And we can just open also to air out there. So we can sense all the beings in the world that share breath with us. Can sense this beautiful blue planet in the vast space, this breathing world. Sense that the air in me and the air outside are not separate. Life flowing inwards and life releasing outwards in each moment. See if it's possible to rest. Rest in all of this. So I'm just going to finish with a poem by Rumi, and then we'll sit for a moment just resting and settling, and I'll ring a bell. Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. So we can just, in your own time, if you want to come back onto a camera, get a sense of easing yourself back into Zoom. So the invitation is to go into breakout rooms with 2 others and to share a little about all of that. Shall I set up the breakout rooms? Yeah. So I reckon if we set up 3 breakout rooms.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. So let's go here. So we'll meet back here in 7 minutes, and I would just encourage you to share in quite an organic and informal way. So there won't be like 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 2 minutes. It will just be an informal sharing for about 6 minutes. And we'll put in the chat when you've got a minute left.
So your rooms are open.
I am sweating so. Oh God, I put the wood burner on. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die of heat.
I'm just going to have a pee.
All right,
That was beautiful. That was totally wonderful and beautiful.
thank you.
You're doing the timing, are you?
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, I've got the timing.
Yeah, if you run over a bit, it's fine. It's all good.
Oh, thanks. It would be nice to have maybe 5 minutes for sharings, if you're all
Sure.
right with that.
Sure.
Great. I know, I was looking at the time, I was thinking, oh my God, I've got to get going in this meditation.
No, it's fine. It's beautiful. It was
Okay.
beautiful. I lay on the floor because I was so relaxed.
Oh, nice.
Be on the ground, yeah.
It's nice. It's good to hear. It's actually, usually it's a 2-hour practice, but you know, you have to be really into it to do that.
Sometimes you could come and run a whole class yourself on this.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I want to have the oak. I was so impressed with those oak facts.
They were
It's just
wonderful,
really
weren't they?
blew me away, actually. What I found, what blew me away the most was realizing that Greece used to be thickly forested. Just couldn't believe it. I was like, I always think of Greece as being sort of this dry kind of
Yeah, isn't it?
I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I know that the UK was a rainforest, but somehow Greece really got me. I was thinking all those bloody ships that got killed.
Yeah.
6,000
right now,
folks.
in London,
One.
yeah, one ship. It's incredible, isn't it?
6,000 folks.
In London right now, there is sand from the Sahara on all the cars.
No, really?
Yeah.
I'm just going to plug this thingy in here so I should have put it in earlier actually, because you can probably hear me a bit more clearly when I've got it in. Sorry.
Oh, we're still recording, but I'll get it to cut it out. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back.
Yeah, so we were just interested to know if anybody wanted to share anything about that last hour, or have any questions about it. Just If you do, maybe you might just want to unmute. Might have just rendered you all completely speechless.
I could share, but I would like to allow somebody else to share too.
Oh, I'm sure we've got time for more than you to share. Why don't you start us off?
Well, I'm most of the time when I'm sharing, I like to go a little bit towards the end because I'm doing more of a synthesis, not of what everybody said, but I'm touching other points, which is okay to go in the beginning, or also it's better to go in the end. It depends who's opening the field here, or anyone can open the field. So,
well, if you want me to go, I don't know if anyone else has, but I was about to say something as well.
Great,
so
Caroline,
maybe
start
that's
us
what I
off.
do. I just wanted to share my gratitude, actually, especially for one element there, which was fire. Because in my experience, fire is, for me, often very, very powerful. And talking about it now is getting more powerful, but actually in the way that you presented it, it made it possible for it to be really light and really pure and sort of transformative in that very pure, direct way, as opposed to fierce.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the real point of fire, actually, is you know, that aspect of it. Anyway, but for me, certainly, there's always historically been a tendency to go the other way. And so I'm really grateful. So I just wanted to share that, really, my gratitude and the beautiful way that was held. So thank you.
Oh, I'm really touched. Thank you, Caroline. I just want to share something in relationship to what you just shared, which is that I went through this phase of exploring the elements in a completely different way and more somatically. And I realized that my fire element was really underdeveloped as a being. And so I looked at different ways in which I could encourage the element to kind of live through me, as it were. And I took up squash, the game squash, and I took up taekwondo. And through practicing these regularly, I felt that I was enabling something of that energy to kind of move through me. And I found it so helpful. So for me, I found it really helpful. I was like, oh, this is the energy of forward. This is very lifeward energy. And I personally had a tendency to kind of move back from life, you know, hold myself in the periphery of things. So it was really a challenge to have to be really kind of assertive and kind of, you know, moving in this direction. So I just wanted to share that because I also feel very grateful to fire as a balancing aspect. Thank you. Okay, so we haven't got very long for sharing actually, because Julian's going to be moving on soon. So if you want to share, I would say now is the time to do it. Was anyone bored senseless by it and didn't kind of get anything? I mean, everything's fodder, isn't it? Good to kind of get a sense of that.
I fell asleep, but then I often do, but I found it all very soothing. And I've got trees. I've got a big oak tree in my back garden, so I've learned about oak trees, and I've got a puppy asleep on my lap. So I feel very connected to nature and you and what you're talking about. Thank you. I shall listen to it again. Yes.
I love your honesty, Marina, and the images that you conjure up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is it Live You?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
I
leave
think
you.
now is the moment.
Okay. Thank you. It was realigning. The experience was realigning. I felt like moving at times and recentering, relaxing in the same time, but relaxing at every level. But was basically the integration of each layer itself, analyzing from every point, and then I like the awareness for every single part, for the awareness to related to body parts. On the grounding, talking about the hills and valleys. So when you say like sitting on the earth, you're not thinking about exactly on what, but if you say hills or valleys, you are conscious of the surface you're sitting on. And that's very important throughout the whole exercise. And then the liquids, the moisture, the armpits, the sweat, exactly, is basically the sensation on the body, which is very, it takes you right there in a specific point. And then the same with the belly and the blood, the water, and also you went to the pulse of the earth, seeing the earth pulsing. And same with the fire. I like that, the warmth, the candle, the sensations, the radiator. So basically what you did, you will spool within a normal, natural integration with the earth in all, I can say, frequencies. And also just turning, I felt more than that, but the breathing and going in layers and then coming down and then up from the beginning and to the end. So it's that's this awareness of every body point. It's perfectly analyzing and reassessing, realigning, and thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. For me, the trick with the practice has been something to open to the complexity and wovenness of the elements, whilst also dropping into the felt sensing in the body, not staying too high in the head. I think it's a real skill, actually. Thank you for your sharing.
Thank you. And also, sometimes it happened maybe for about 2 seconds, or when I kind of went out and then I came back right quick in the meditation. And sometimes it may happen for some thoughts to come in and then just let them,
yes,
just look at the train go by and just, I'm
very natural.
Yes, natural. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello,
Thank you,
Natasha.
Julian.
I just want to say thank you. I like your tenderness energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass on to Julian. Thank you for letting me share that practice. I really appreciate it.
So beautiful, so touching and so deep. I so enjoyed the meditation. For me, it was, my body wanted to lie on the earth, so I was lying on the floor, feeling the ground in this very sort of deep state. I feel slightly nervous right now because it was such a great act to follow. And so I just wanted to, I'm going to take us into another meditation in a moment, but I wanted to say some things first. And I thought actually Live You speaking was such a great example of something that's super important to me, which is that, it was such a great example of the cognitive mind making a map of experience. It was really, he made a really beautiful map of experience. And, you know, we know this book, you've heard me speak of it before, The Master and the Emissary, in which is, you know, 800 pages of how the right brain has direct experience and the left brain is making maps of experience. And that the problem with the modern world is that the left brain has taken over because its job is to communicate, its job is to make maps, its job is to do these very beautiful things. But it's usurped the master, it's usurped the emperor, it's a sort of had a coup d'etat. And that it's the right brain, it's the body that directly experiences the world in a systemic way. And so in the meditation, that was my experience of the meditation, of just feeling, you know, very beautifully described by Nivea, but feeling the nature that I am. And I think that was so powerful and beautiful. And just to add one other thought into the process, which is that modern psychology is part of the problem, because modern psychology is interested in the individual self. And yet we're much more than individual selves. We are deeply intimate with the whole biosphere. And that by thinking that we're separate from the biosphere, which is a fallacy, you know, we perpetuate this problem of using the resources of the world as if they were, you know, they were unlimited. It's, you know, when a baby's a baby, we can drink just as much milk as we want from the mother, it's all fine. But hopefully later on in life, we start to give back to our mothers and to our families. And humanity's reached the point where we've actually got to take care of the whole thing rather than just ourselves. And so for me, that was such a beautiful example of the middle ground between the individual self and spirit, you know, the non-dual space in which everything's one. So often I'm teaching people everything's one, teaching people to meditate into that space where there's no longer a sense of self, or very minimal anyway, sense of self. And, you know, and then teaching people that, and then teaching people to sort their lives out. But in between those two, in between my individual sense of my finite body and my finite lifespan and the non-dual where it's infinite and eternal, between those two is nature. There's also the community of mind, the community of, you know, the community of mind, the community of all beings, and which rises out of nature. But nature is the sort of the link between the two. And so I just want us to you know, to spend some time going back to that experience of ourselves as nature. It's sort of, it's the thing, it's what will save the world, if the world is savable, you know, which is, I mean, the world is savable, whether humans are savable is a different question. But if we want to live at peace with in this biosphere, we're going to have to learn to feel ourselves as nature, as biosphere. And so this is really probably the most important thing that our generation can do. It's to experience ourselves as nature, and to experience nature as being us. There's that peripheral vision when you soften the gaze, you know. So Natasha was doing that with us. What was the hand position? What's the hand position? Where did it start? It started here. And then that's so important. So it starts here. And then you focus on the point in front of you, which might be your face on the screen. And that's where your focus is. And then, but you keep your eyes. Now I can't see my eyes on the screen anymore, but I can see them in my soft gaze. And I can see them, and I can see them, and I can see them, and I can still see them. And so that is the soft gaze of the right brain, of sensing the whole system rather than just the part. My little intellect can come in a little occasionally if it wants to, but it's much less in charge when I do this. And so this is where wisdom is taking in the whole. And this practice of softening our gaze in this way is a really quick access to this state of this is how to be in nature, this is how to be nature. So just hopefully you're all trying this right now. You pick a point in front of you. And then you can use your hands if you want to, or you can just soften your gaze and see how broad your gaze can be. And then in that state, not only are you seeing differently, you're seeing in a softer way, but also perhaps you can feel your body in a different way from this gaze, so that you can feel What if we gave up the word this body? What if we just felt? Little hints are helpful. What if the crown of your head and the soles of your feet were two ends of a galaxy? If there was 1 billion miles between the crown of your head and your feet, how would you then experience what's between? And how much can you just relax back into that feeling? Like when the intellect pops up and jabbers away, to just say, oh yes, we're there too, but not to put your attention there, but to put your attention in this vast feeling between, well, this vast feeling. How much can you feel? So then there's the breadth of the experience, of which peripheral vision is one way in. Perhaps there's the breadth of sound. And then there's all of the feeling. It can also be helpful to bring attention into very particular feelings. Some feeling stands out in your body. Just allowing ourselves to experience our bodies in a new way. Can you drop down into the feelings? So every time you talk to yourself, that's the other side of the brain. That's the rational brain. And that's welcome too. But we're particularly wanting to pay attention to the bigger field. For example, you could pay attention to the feelings on the underside of your body. Maybe you notice the groin area and earth more. Maybe you notice the belly and water more. Maybe you notice the heart more, the fiery heart. Maybe you notice throat and air more. Maybe you notice awareness more, where all of this seeing, hearing, and feeling arrives, where it lands, where it arises. What is experiencing all of this? Where is all of this experience? Can you just relax back into that? I can hear the rain. There is sand from the Sahara on the streets outside my window. Later, I'm going to go and collect some. Other than your talking mind, what draws your attention? Can you keep taking your attention to either the space in which all of this arises, or perhaps easier, a particular sensation in your body, or a particular sound outside your head? There's so much going on. Just noticing what's arising. living from this expanded place. Fully connected with the world. I'm going to invite you to stay deeply connected while I do a little demo with someone in the group. And then we'll replicate that demo in pairs. We'll do a little exercise with each other. I'd like you to just include the screen in your awareness while staying deeply connected. And I'd like to ask you, Aki, would you do this demo with me? Great, thank you. And I'm going to spotlight myself as well, so you can change your screen to so that you've got gallery view. That works better for you. And so it's just a simple process. I'm going to put my attention, include you in my awareness. I've still got the soft gaze. I'm still broad. I'm really connected in my body.
May I make a suggestion? I'm sorry.
No,
Thank you.
I'm really connected in my body. And just feeling my belly for a moment, feeling Liviu's voice. I'm just going to name my experience. So I'm feeling just a little ricochet from hearing Liviu in my belly. When I'm feeling my backside on the chair. And I'm noticing my breathing. So now it's your turn. What are you experiencing in this moment?
I'm experiencing gravity that feels comforting. I notice a curiosity about you. I caught a glimpse of you coming out of Natasha's.
So stay in the present moment. So this is just your experience of the present moment.
There's something about mushrooms. There is.
Sorry, I hope you don't mind me just directing a little. Your body, perhaps mainly your body, perhaps your ears.
In German, you would say, meine Ohren sind gespitzt, my ears are pointed. There's a curiosity, really listening. And I was gonna say into the world, and no, it's this movement. And
so now pause and I'll say a few phrases and then we'll keep going back and forth. So I'm taking a deep breath and notice your breathing. My lungs fill. I can hear the sound of my computer. I notice a little flutter in my belly, like a physical flutter.
I'm very aware of my heart pumping oxygen into my body. I'm very aware of blood in my body and moving within myself. And a breath.
I'm aware of my shoulders relaxing. I swallow. I clear my throat. I notice my feet on the floor, touching the carpet.
I see a blanket out of the corner of my eyes, which reminds me of a moss I saw at the weekend. I feel my lower spine feeling happy.
Your smile touches my heart. I notice my breathing's a little tight. And in saying that, my breathing gets bigger. And I notice the air in my nose.
I notice my eyes being a bit watery, and there's a gratefulness connected to that. I notice a movement into the head. And I notice that I breathe too. go down again.
Mm.
And I have a feeling of meeting you there.
Mm. I was just feeling that connection with you. Suddenly it came strong. I feel it in my heart, my solar plexus. And my belly is very alert.
I notice I'm allowing myself to be very, very soft right now. And I like that.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Great. So we're going to go into pairs, do this exercise in pairs for about 8 minutes. So we're paying attention to the body, and we're paying attention to sound, and we can talk about what we see, but only in the present moment, only what it is that we're experiencing in the present moment. Did you want to add to that, Natasha?
Yes.
Okay.
My question is that what I noticed you and Akim were doing was that you were sensing what was happening, but also acknowledging your relationship with each other. So it didn't seem to be, to me, a sensing only here, it was a sensing with each other. So I just wanted to clarify.
Good question. There's actually 2 stages. The first stage is just your own direct physical, auditory, visual sensation without any sense of that. But once you've done that for a few rounds, then if you're impacted by the other person, you can mention being impacted by the other person. Great. Let's do it for 8 minutes in total in pairs, starting now. Welcome back. So how was that for you? How was that?
I can share.
Great. Yeah, that's nice. That's good.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because I normally make this kind of practice with my eyes closed. But of course, I'm in a space with somebody else, and I was very conscious of eyes open, eyes closed, eyes open, eyes closed. And it was interesting for me to make it, to acknowledge the other person in my field. Yeah, it was very interesting. I wondered if I had a person I didn't like, whether it would be as interesting to acknowledge them in my field.
It might be more interesting.
Fortunately, I liked my partner, so.
I've been on courses where they have you do it for very long amounts of time, and it's very interesting what happens if you're doing it with someone that you think you don't like. Thank you, Natasha. What else? What else? What was your experience?
Julian, I have a question.
Oh.
Yeah, I work with Livio.
Yes.
And I noticed you changed the words aware to feeling. So I trying to bring him back with the aware. So I just wondering whether I did it wrong, or if he expressed I feel this way, is still awareness. Or
it depends whether he was describing. I wasn't specific about it. So I started by describing feelings, and then I think I talked about sounds, and then even though I didn't use the word seeing, I did notice some things happening in Akim. And then at some point I talked about awareness itself, which is the field in which all the feelings arise, all the sounds arise, all the things you see, everything arises in the field of awareness. So it's fine to use either. It depends what you're describing. There's no right answer to that. If you're describing a physical sensation, then feeling's the right word. If you've come back to awareness, then you might use the word awareness. There's no right or wrong about it.
What about I'm feeling I'm sad? Is that the awareness or?
Well, the feeling of sadness arises in awareness. Everything arises in awareness. So ultimately, there's nothing that exists that isn't awareness.
Yes.
That doesn't arise in awareness, but you can say, I'm feeling sad. That's an emotional feeling. So you have a spiritual practice, Iris.
Huh? But this, I feeling that's the one thing is interesting, the words, like the linguistic sense of the words using. And when I describe, I'm aware that because I'm trying to analyze what's happening with my partner, but then when I change the words, I'm aware, then my mind stopped thinking, stop analyzing. So normally, if I don't use the words I'm aware, I will right away trying to see what's happening in his brain. But then because I use I'm aware, my mind went blank. So just aware, nothing else.
That's good. That's what we're trying to do, is have the mind go blank a bit. So, there's something particular to you, the way it's really interesting to hear you talk about it. The exercise is not about analyzing anything in anyone, including yourself. It's not about that. It's about experiencing what's going on without necessarily naming it. So yeah, thank you. That was a nice insight about.
I'm quite happy to share the experience if you would like.
Yes, go on.
And what I liked was dropping really into where I was and being aware of the person that was on the other side of the screen. And even though I could drop into me, it was how it changed me. So when she opened, I automatically opened and then became aware of it, and then dropped back into what I was experiencing. So it was really a beautiful dance between the two of us.
Did you begin to get, so did other people get a sense of you and the other person becoming as a single system? How many of you, that's what Maggie was talking about, great. Akim did. Anyone else get a sense of you and the other person as a single system?
I had a sense of reciprocity.
Yeah. Right. Nancy did as well. Do you think, was the hands up if you thought the exercise was the right length, or if I could have let it continue longer? Hands up if you think it was the right length. How many people thinks I could have continued it longer? Great, good to see. Good. So thank you so much for that today. So the topic of today is such a beautiful deep exercise that Natasha took us through, which was experiencing ourselves as nature, which was so beautiful, so touching. And then I wanted to build on that with just really paying attention to how we get into that state. And you have other methods of getting into that state of openness and connectedness. And then we went into how we do that when we're face to face with other people. And actually, this exercise that we've just done, I love doing that with people. It can become very, very deep and intimate. The first level is what's happening in my body, what's happening in your body. The second level is we're beginning to say how we respond to each other. And then after that, there can be a little bit more conversation, but from the ground of just connectedness in my own body. So did you have any closing remarks, Natasha?
Yeah, I was really interested in that practice that you just shared, because it's very close to what happens in focusing. And I'd never considered the possibility of doing that practice as a lead in to say something like the 6 element practice. And I can just see it's been so beautiful for me, because I can just see how compatible both of those practices really are. It's just a real gift, actually, that you led that so beautifully in relationship to what I'd shared. I'm really touched. Thank you.
Great. Fantastic. We're almost out of time. Just before we do the closing ritual of everybody saying how they feel, I just wanted to mention that the 2022 Life Talent Program is starting in April, and I have a fast track entry point, a coaching group on the weekend of the 9th and 10th of April that will equip people to go to level 2. Can you hear me?
We can now.
Great. Let's do the final sharing. How are you feeling right now?
Like me and a forest.
I feel really relaxed and contented and connected.
Feeling open. Openness.
Connecting.
Connected.
I feel connected to my body and strong.
I feel natural.
Lovely having you here today.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
Do you mind to share your fast track program because it was cut off?
Yes, sure. I can do that. So 9th, 10th of April, we're basically going to do we're going to do two things. We're going to so the fast track entry, level 1 entry to the Life Talent level 2 is we'll do the life calling, we'll look at your strengths, and we'll do an exercise called healing emotional wounds, which are those are 3 core things from the 9-week Life Talent program. Life Talent level 2 needs people to have a clear life calling and to have some sense of relationship between their life calling and their strength, and also just to this deep exercise called healing emotional wounds. And so those are requirements for level 2. So that would be on the Saturday and the Sunday. Depending on how many people, the time might adjust a little bit. It may be 3 or 4 people, something like that. Most of the participants for level 2 that starts on the 19th of April will have done the full 9 weeks Tools for Personal Transformation level 1. And that 9 weeks is equivalent to 4 days of training. So it's a fast track for people who've got experience of personal development or deep change work. Do you have questions about that, Iris?
Yeah, I emailed you before the same question, but at that time you hasn't have the fast track program. I said, I feel I'm ready for the level 2, but then the level 1 is a mandatory. So that's exactly my question.
Yeah. So the fast track level 1 is a way through if you want to do that.
Yeah. I would take a look at, you would include in your newsletter or?
It's in the newsletter. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would take a look.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Nice to see you, Iris.